Chapter 2, Organization Strategy and Project Selection. So, why do project managers need to understand strategy? Well, there's two main reasons for project managers to need to understand their organization's missions and strategy. This is so they can make appropriate decisions and adjustments. How a project manager would respond to a suggestion to modify design of a product or to delays that may vary depending upon the strategic concerns. Every action of every employee in an organization should be driven by its mission and then implemented by its strategy and to hit their objectives. Now, another reason is so they can be effective project advocates. They have to be able to do the following: demonstrate to senior management how their project contributes to the firm's mission in order to garner their continued support. Explain to stakeholders why certain project objectives and priorities are critical in order to secure buy-in on contentious trade-off decisions. Lastly, they need to be able to explain why a project is important to motivate and empower the project team. Everything has to flow from the mission of the organization down into the strategy, including the project that you're going to manage. Now, strategic management is the process of assessing what we are and deciding and implementing what we intend to be and how we're going to get there. Strategic management is continuous. It's an iterative process that we've talked about before, aimed at developing an integrated and coordinated long-term plan of action, and it requires strong links to an organization's mission, goals, objectives, strategy, and implementation. There are two major dimensions to strategic management. First, it responds to changes in the external environment and allocates the firm's scarce resources to improve its competitive position. It's also internally responsive to new action programs aimed at enhancing the competitive position of the firm. So there's the external affecting the strategy, and there's the internal affecting the strategy. There are four activities to the strategic management process. They are: review and define the organization mission. Once that's established, what we want to become, all right, the mission shapes how we go about doing it. Then we need to analyze and formulate our strategies. We need to answer questions like what needs to be done to reach these objectives. Then we need to formulate our strategy to determine and evaluate alternatives that support the organization's objectives, again, set within the mission, and select the best alternative between projects. We're mimicking that in this course. Then we need to set objectives to achieve these strategies. You may make like these little specific, concrete, measurable term action steps. Much like when you have a final project due at the end of the semester, you need to go back and look at what are my milestones? What do I want to set up to grow my project to where when we get to the final presentation, that thing is just as great as we could ever make it. That takes time. That takes every day. Lastly, we need to implement strategies through projects. We need to answer the question of how strategies will be realized and given the available resources. So with the people, the product, the technology, and the money that we have on hand, what can we do with this project? How can we do it? What are the steps needed? This is a strategic management process. Again, look here. You got the external environment. You got the internal environment. You're going to have your mission. Depending on what the internal environment is, depending on what the external environment is, you set your strategy and objectives. You move towards strategic choices. Then you implement that strategy. Then you select your project, and then you launch your project. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. What are we now? What do we intend to be? And how are we going to get there? We have to set objectives that that are smart, that are specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time-related. You have to do SMART goals in here. You need to be specific in targeting an objective. What specifically you're trying to achieve. Each person, each day, each team. Establish measurable indicators. Who is going to deliver what, when, and where. Ideally, you don't just all copy and paste it together in the day that the thing is due and then just send it in our inbox and we try to grade it and it looks like 5 different people wrote it. Maybe set yourself a deadline a few days before so you can have some time for the whole team to review the entire thing and make it look like one document. You have to set some measurable objectives to do that, some deadlines within the deadlines, if you will. You need to assign different objectives to each person for completion. You need to be realistic about what you can do with the available resources. Assume within reason you have money for these projects. but you don't have time. That's the other resource. And then be realistic about what your team has. Do a SWOT analysis. What are your weaknesses? Do you not have anybody that can do financial? Be realistic. That doesn't mean you can get away without doing financial. You just need to acknowledge it's a weakness and then do the best you can, which we'll talk about a little later in this presentation. And then it's time related. State the objective that can be achieved during the allowed duration. You have only a set amount of weeks in this semester. If you don't have a day-by-day plan for your group yet, you need to get on it. Now, there are some problems we have to address here, and we have to figure out a way to prioritize between projects. So, problem number one, the implementation gap. The implementation gap is a lack of understanding between upper-level management and middle management. There's some lost in communication. People don't understand exactly what the leader is trying to ask of you. Let me tell you what, that is the most real-world thing that you can get in this course. I hope you're a little bit confused and a little bit frustrated, because welcome to project management in corporate America. Organizational politics. Project selection may be based on not so much on facts and sound reasoning as it is persuasiveness and the power of people advocating for their projects. Sometimes the good salesman wins even though the other project's better. And then there's always the sacred cow, which is often used to denote a project that a powerful, high-ranking official is advocating for, even if they didn't do their homework. And here you're going to have to do your homework. None of you are sacred cows. Problem number 3, resource conflicts and multitasking. A multi-project environment creates problems of project interdependency and the need to share resources. Resource sharing leads to multitasking. Say one person is really good at finance and they're trying to do that for all the projects. Well, they're not going to do any one project excellent. And it involves starting and stopping work on one task to go and work on another project and then returning to the work of the original task. It kills the flow and thus hurts the overall quality. Now, benefits of project portfolio management. You build discipline into the project selection process. You link project selections to strategic metrics. You prioritize project proposals across a common set of criteria rather than on politics or emotion. Takes out the cash cow. You allocate resources to projects that align with strategic direction. You balance risk across all projects. Justifies killing projects that do not support organizational strategy. They don't hit the mission. And improves communication and supports agreement on project goals. Section 4 goes a little bit more into compliance projects versus operational projects versus strategic projects. And here you're largely doing strategic projects. These are must-do projects, the compliance projects that keep the lights on. Operational makes the day-to-day existing operations better. This is looking at strategic projects, strategically pursuing new opportunities. Phase gate model is a series of gates that a project must pass through in order to be completed. Its purpose is to ensure the organization is investing time and resources in worthwhile projects, it's like checkbacks, that contribute to its mission and strategy. Projects can be bailed on at any point. Each gate is associated with a project phase and represents a decision point as to whether we continue or reject the project. The gate can lead to 3 possible outcomes. Go, that's proceed. Kill, get rid of it. Or recycle. Recycle means you're not getting rid of it, but you're also not letting it proceed further. You're asking the team to do more work on their project while, keeping it alive. Let's use a visual here. So phase 1 is an idea. Is this a good idea? Proceed through gate 1. Phase 2, make a proposal. If the proposal is solid, proceed through gate 2. Phase 3, screen different projects, and if they make it through that screening, they go through gate 3. Phase 4, implementation. If the implementation plan is solid, go through the next gate. Progress evaluation. Checking back as you implement the plan here. Go through gate 5. Phase 6, closure of the project and on to another project. There's another little graphic coming up that I'll be able to tie back into what we were talking about previously. Financial criteria. So what are the different criteria that we're looking at? Well, there's financial criteria, non-financial criteria, and 2 multi-criteria selection models. Financial criteria is all about, hey, how fast can you pay back this investment? And then looking at things a little more depth like cash flow and net present value. I can tell you right now, projects that take the time to put together solid financials, that's usually the hardest part of the project. Those are the ones that are going to move forward. If you have a good idea but have no idea on the financials, you're toast. If you have an okay idea and you have an incredible way of modeling the financials, you get a lot better chance of going through. Then you have non-financial criteria, and the projects of a strategic importance to the firm. So, or is this something that's helping advance the firm's reputation? Is this something that's helping advance the firm's mission? Then you have two multi-criteria selection models. You have a checklist model and multi-weighted scoring models. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about these in depth. Payback model measures the time the project will take to recover the project investment. It desires shorter paybacks. It's the simplest and most widely used model, and it emphasizes cash flows, which is a key, obviously, factor in business. Now, limitations of a payback model: it ignores the time value of money, which you will need over time once a product moves from the initial project stage into like a more permanent division within the corporation. You need to assume cash flows. They assume cash flows during the investment period, but not beyond. So basically, once you get past launch, this needs to be something that's self-sustainable. The corporation doesn't have to keep investing in. That actually starts making money and invests in itself. So the payback model doesn't consider this level of profitability. So the payback formula is given in the book, and actually we look at the net present value. There's a great example in the book, so you need to make sure you're doing that as well. But the payback period you look at in years is the estimated project cost over annual savings or annual profits if we're looking at a new product launch year. Now, what about the non-financial? I think I just jumped ahead here. I apologize. The non-financial criteria. Examples of strategic objectives that are non-financial is to capture a large market share, which indirectly leads to financials. To make it difficult for competitors to enter the market, that's putting up barriers to entry. To develop an enabler product that leads to the introduction of more sales on more profitable products. Think Apple with its like iPhones, and they actually make more money on the accessories. So when they change the plug in your phone, they just made a bunch of money because they have to sell you new accessories. Developing core technology that will be used in next generation products or projects. So if you develop, say, Google Pixel camera that is really starting to outstrip, like, say, the Apple phone, that is something that you can roll into the next generation to continue to differentiate yourself. One of your strategic objectives might be to reduce dependency on unreliable suppliers, i.e. bring that in-house, innovate, find a new way to do it, or to prevent government intervention and regulation, which can be a course unto itself. Now, the two multi-criteria selection models, there's checklist models and multi-weighted scoring models. Checklist models, you could just have like, hey, I'm just going down a checklist, like a rubric saying, hey, you did this, you did that, you did this. Does you use a list of questions to review potential projects and determine their acceptance or rejection? Do they hit all the checks? Do they hit all the objectives? And then you can allow for greater flexibility in selecting among many different types of projects that are very tough to compare across different divisions and locations. But it may fail to answer the relative importance and value of a potential project to an organization. It does not allow for comparison of very different other potential projects. This kind of brings in multi-weighted scoring models. This is like the rubric with different weightings on different categories. Kind of similar to the rubric that I'll be providing here before too long on the final project. This uses several weighted selection criteria to evaluate project proposals. Sounds like a rubric, right? It includes qualitative and quantitative criteria. There's like checklists within it, but then those checklists lead to points. This allows for comparison across very different projects. So, again, looking at checklist models, some sample questions that could be asked relate to strategy, sponsorship, risk, ROI, return on investment, your organizational culture, etc. Some questions could be: what specific organization strategy does this project align with? Who is the project sponsor? How risky is this project? When will this project show results? And how long will this project take? So those are some good questions to ask, and I'll leave it to the reading for you to be able to go through that. Project classification, deciding whether the project fits the organizational strategy, is tied back to the mission. Selecting a model. Weighted scoring criteria seems to be the best alternative because then you can compare very different projects and it reduces the number of wasteful projects that are using your time and money, your resources. They help identify project goals that can be communicated using the selection criteria as corroboration, and they help managers understand how the project was selected. It's like a scoreboard. You know if you won or lost. How the project contributes to organizational goals and how it compares to other projects. So applying a selection model, sources within the solicitation, sources and solicitations of project proposals, can come within an organization, i.e. a project within an organization, which we're mimicking in this class, or from outside the organization when we do RFPs, which are requests for proposals. You see this a lot in small governments. You can see them in the newspaper or online. They're asking for contractors and vendors to bid on, say, maintaining a park or building a new playground or doing some accounting auditing of a division of government. There's a lot of RFPs out there. Each county, each town, federal government does RFPs. That is a way of getting project proposals from outside sources. RFPs, requests for proposals. Ranking proposal and selection of projects, evaluating each proposal in terms of its feasibility, potential contribution to the strategic objectives of the organization, and fit within a portfolio of current projects. Things have to make sense. Rejecting or accepting the project based on a given selection criteria, say a weighted score, and prioritizing projects of senior management who are most in tune with the mission and are charged with pushing the organization forward in terms of profitability, in terms of people, in terms of its social impact and spiritual impact. Now, here's that graphic I was promising you. You have a proposal. The priority team evaluates the proposal and reviews. If it's good, it moves forward. If they need more information, they put it over here. They wait for more information and then reevaluate. If it's terrible, they reject it. Let's say they pursue it. Project management and staff are assigned to develop a detailed implementation plan. It's kind of where you guys need to be. You need to be putting together your teams, putting together your project manager, and then starting on an implementation plan. If that's all golden, then we move towards priority team evaluates the proposal of the implementation plan. Think of your professor in this situation as the priority team that's going to allow this to move forward or not. We may need more information. We'll send it back to you. Reassess. If it's not any better, we reject. If it is better, we accept. Project charter is issued. Resources are assigned. The project is initiated. It also could get put on hold. There's a lot of considerations here. Think financial, think the economy, think something's going on in the world and it's not right in the right time for the project. It could be shelved or it could move forward. You just never know. Your job is just to make the project run as smoothly as possible. You're not guaranteed to be approved. You will be guaranteed to get an F in this course if you do not go through steps like this and develop a detailed project that's built not only in your experiences in the lecture, but also from the reading and the backbone provided by this text and all the other material provided in this course. You're expected to be prepared. We've hired you. I want to see it. So managing a portfolio system, you're definitely going to have senior management input that provides guidance in establishing selection criteria that strongly align with the current organization strategies. Basically, they're going to make the rubric. And annually decide the senior managers decide how to balance the available organizational resources, the human capital, the people, their hours, the financial capital, the physical capital, the money, so the time and the money on different types of projects. You got governance team responsibilities to publish the priority of every project, ensure the selection process is open and free of, let's say, cash cows, power politics. Evaluate the progress of current projects. You know, you could go back here and say, not projecting, we're going to need more information, or we're going to reject it outright. Constantly scan the external environment to determine if the organization focus and selection criteria needs to be changed. You got to look at that internal, but you got to look at the market and make sure what you're developing still makes sense. Now, you have to balance the portfolio for risks and types of projects. David and Jim Matheson studied R&D organizations. These are organizations that literally do is research and development, trying to find the next best thing, and develop a classification scheme that can be used when assessing the project portfolio. They are separated projects in terms of degrees of difficulty and commercial value. There are 4 basic types of projects. Bread and butter. This is something that takes, evolves an improvement on a current product or service. Pearls represents a huge, bigger jump forward, a revolutionary commercial advance in some proven technology or existing product. Oysters involve technological breakthroughs. They kind of creatively destroy whatever it is they were before. Think of a BlackBerry was creatively destroyed by smartphones like an iPhone. That's an oyster. And then you have white elephants. They showed promise at one time, but they're no longer viable. Google Glass, those little glasses that Google came out with not too long ago that you guys may or may not know about because, well, they were white elephants. Again, 20,000-foot view of chapter 2 does not replace the reading. Make sure you're getting that done. I'll catch you in chapter 3.